There are many theories about it, but there's no agreement on what it was that produced this miracle of nature.
It is made of volcanic type materials, but there's no other volcanic activity around it. So what caused this thing? We don't know the answer to that question. It's a really interesting conundrum.
What looked like a massive tree was hiding a secret for centuries. Beneath the layers of bark and roots, researchers uncovered an ancient structure. What seemed like nature's work was actually built by nature or human hands long ago. Starting with Devil's Tower, National Monument, Wyoming, USA, a massive geological formation resembles a giant tree stump, leading to myths and theories about it being a petrified ancient tree. However, it's a natural igneous intrusion. For years, people looked at it and thought the same thing: a massive ancient tree standing tall in the middle of Wyoming's rolling prairies. Its towering shape, the deep cracks running down its sides, even the way it rises alone from the earth, it all looked too much like the remains of something once alive, something impossibly huge. But the truth is even more mysterious. This is Devil's Tower, a breathtaking rock formation that seems to defy nature itself. Standing 867 feet high, with a flat top and fluted sides, it looms over the land like a forgotten giant. Long ago, people believed it was a tree, but it turned to stone over time. But in reality, it's something even older, an ancient volcanic structure, a powerful force frozen in place. Scientists believe that millions of years ago, molten rock pushed upward from deep inside the earth, only to be trapped beneath the harder stone. Over time, wind and water wore away the land around it, revealing the towering rock that had been hidden underneath. What we see today is the heart of a volcano that never erupted, yet science is only part of the story. For the Plains Indian tribes, Devil's Tower is much more than just a rock. It is a sacred place. For generations, they have told stories of its creation, of powerful spirits and legendary battles. The Kiowa and Lakota people believed that a great bear clawed the sides of the tower, leaving deep grooves as it chased children who had climbed to the top for safety. To this day, the site remains deeply spiritual, a place of prayer and ceremonies. At the same time, Devil's Tower has drawn another kind of visitor, rock climbers. Its vertical cracks make it one of the best climbing spots in North America. But here, the past and present collide. June is a sacred month for many tribes, filled with traditional ceremonies. While some climbers still ascend the tower during this time, many choose to pause out of respect, recognizing the deep meaning this place holds. Whether you come to climb, to witness its mystery, or simply to stand in its shadow, Devil's Tower is unforgettable. It is a place of legend, history, and wonder, a reminder of how little we truly know about the world around us. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Next up, Ta Prohm Temple, Siem Reap, Cambodia, is famous for the massive trees such as silk cotton and strangler figs, intertwining with its stone structures, creating an illusion of the temple being part of a forest. Deep in the heart of Cambodia, hidden beneath a dense green canopy, stood what seemed like an enormous tree, its roots twisted through the ground like ancient veins, its towering form stretching towards the sky. The villagers called it the Great Tree of Ta Prohm, a silent giant that had watched over the jungle for centuries. Travelers marveled at its size, running their hands over its rough surface, believing they were touching the bark of a tree older than time itself. But the truth was far stranger than anyone could have imagined. One morning, as the sun filtered through the jungle mist, a group of explorers arrived, drawn by whispers of something extraordinary. They looked closer, brushing away moss and tangled vines. What they found made them step back in awe. This was no tree, it was stone, cold, carved stone, and beneath the layers of roots and time, patterns began to emerge, figures, faces, and walls that told stories of a forgotten past. Ta Prohm was not a tree, but a temple, a mighty structure built in 1186 as a Buddhist monastery dedicated to the mother of King Jayavarman VII. Long before nature reclaimed it, thousands of monks, dancers, and scholars had walked its halls. But as centuries passed, the jungle took back what man had created. The roots of silk cotton and strangler fig trees grew through its towers, gripping its walls like fingers of time. The stone corridors corridors, once alive with prayers, became choked with fallen carvings. Sunlight barely touched the temple floor, casting everything in a mysterious green glow. Yet, despite the ruin, there was beauty. The way the roots wrapped around the temple made it look like something out of a dream, as if the trees and stone had become one. It was a place where time stood still, where the past whispered through every crack in the walls. The most famous of all was the Tomb Raider tree, where an explorer once plucked a jasmine flower before vanishing into the depths of legend. Ta Prohm was more than a temple. It was proof that while men build, nature reclaims. But some stories refuse to be forgotten, and so, hidden beneath the roots, the temple still waits, watching as the jungle slowly weaves its next tale. Angkor Wat, Siem Reap, Cambodia, similar to Ta Prohm, several temples in the Angkor complex have large tree roots enveloping the stone edifices, giving an impression of trees consuming the structures. For centuries, people looked at it and believed it was just a massive tree. Its roots stretched deep into the ground, its trunk rising high above the land. The branches seemed to touch the sky, casting long shadows over the earth. But as time passed and explorers stepped closer, they made a shocking discovery. This was no ordinary tree. Hidden beneath layers of moss, tangled roots, and thick vines was something extraordinary. An ancient temple lost to time. This is Angkor Wat, one of the most breathtaking places in the world. Built in the 12th century by King Suryavarman II, it was meant to be a grand temple for the Hindu god Vishnu. Over time, it transformed into a Buddhist temple, standing as a sacred place for generations. Its design was unlike anything else, a vast complex surrounded by a wide moat with towering stone structures representing Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods. But as powerful kingdoms fell and centuries rolled on, the temple was abandoned. The jungle slowly took over, wrapping itself around the stone and swallowing the temple whole. The roots of enormous trees dug deep into the temple walls, their thick trunks pressing against the ancient carvings. Vines crept into the cracks, hiding the intricate designs that once told stories of gods and warriors. It became a place of mystery, a temple lost beneath the weight of nature. Some legends even say that it was built on a single night by divine hands. Others believed it was a palace created for the gods themselves. Travelers who stumbled upon it could hardly believe their eyes. A mighty structure once built by men now looked like part of the forest. When the world finally rediscovered Angkor Wat, its beauty amazed all who saw it. Restoration efforts began, uncovering the breathtaking carvings and grand corridors that had been hidden for so long. Today, it stands tall once more, a symbol of Cambodia. Its image is even placed on the country's flag. But no matter how much is restored, the temple will always carry the marks of its long slumber. The trees that once tried to claim it still stand, their roots forever intertwined with the stones, reminding everyone of a time when the jungle nearly erased history. Shilin Stone Forest, Yunnan, China, is an amazingly natural formation of limestone pillars that from a distance resemble a dense forest, leading to myths about petrified trees. The villagers had always believed it was a forest. A strange one, yes, but a forest nonetheless. Towering forms rose from the earth, stretching toward the sky like ancient trees frozen in time. The people of Shilin in Yunnan, China, called it the Stone Forest, for that's what it seemed to be. Trees turned to stone by the whispers of time. Travelers came from far and wide, walking through its winding paths, marveling at the way the trunks stood unmoving, their rough surfaces weathered by the wind. It was a place of wonder, a forest, unlike any other. But then someone looked closer. What seemed like bark was not bark at all. It was hard, cool to the touch, unyielding, and beneath the cracks there were no rings of a tree, no traces of life, only ancient rock carved by time itself. This was no forest. It was something much older, something nature had sculpted long before people walked the land. These towering pillars had once been buried beneath a vast ocean, their shapes molded by water, wind, and the shifting earth. Over 270 million years, the sea had vanished, and what remained was this: stone rising like trees, an illusion crafted by time. But the villagers did not forget their stories. They spoke of Ashima, the beautiful ye-girl who had wandered through this very place. Forbidden from marrying the one she loved, she had wept beneath these towering rocks until she, too, turned to stone. Even now, they said, she stood somewhere among them, frozen forever, watching over the land. And so, each year, they celebrated the Torch Festival, filling the stone forest with laughter, dance, and fire, honoring the past in a place that had stood unchanged for millions of years. Time had shaped the stone forest, yet it remained as it always was, silent, mysterious, and eternal. The trees of rock stood still, as they always had, as they always would, a reminder that not everything is as it seems. What people once thought was a living forest was something far greater, a piece of history carved by the earth itself, waiting to tell its story to those who dared to listen. Next one on the row is quite interesting. Wawel Dragon's Den, Kraków, Poland. A limestone cave beneath Wawel Hill, which, due to its entrance surrounded by greenery, was once thought to be an ancient tree hollow. The people of Kraków lived in fear. Every night, the ground shook as a great beast crawled from its cave beneath Wawel Hill. The Wawel Dragon, with scales like iron and eyes that burned like fire, had ruled over the land for as long as anyone could remember. It demanded food, livestock, gold, sometimes even people, and no one dared to refuse. Many warriors had tried to slay the beast, but none returned. Then came Scuba, not a knight, not a hero, but a simple shoemaker's apprentice. He was clever though, and knew the dragon's greatest weakness, its hunger. Instead of fighting, he took a lamb's skin and stuffed it with sulfur. He placed it outside the dragon's cave and waited. The beast, greedy as ever, swallowed it whole, but something was wrong. The fire burned inside its belly, a terrible, unquenchable thirst driving it mad. Desperate, the dragon ran to the Vistula River and drank. It drank and drank, but the fire inside only grew hotter. The river could not save it, and so it drank more, until it drank too much. With a final thunderous roar, the Wawel Dragon exploded, and its reign of terror ended. The people rejoiced. They built a great city above the dragon's cave, calling it Kraków, named after the prince who had first tried to fight the beast. The cave remained, and though the dragon was gone, its story was never forgotten. Even today, visitors can step inside the dark tunnels beneath Wawel Hill, walking the very path where the beast once slept. Outside the cave, a great metal statue of the Wawel Dragon stands, a fierce reminder of the legend. Made in 1972, it does something no other statue does. It breathes fire. Every few minutes, flames burst from its mouth as if the spirit of the old beast still lingers. Near the castle, bones hang from a chain. Whale bones, perhaps, or something even older. Some say they are the dragon's remains, and that when they fall, the world will end. But Kraków still stands. The dragon's cave still waits, and the legend still lives. What was once a nightmare is now a story, whispered through time, reminding all who visit that sometimes the greatest battles are won not with strength, but with cleverness. Giant's Causeway, County Antrim, Northern Ireland. Well, an area with about 40,000 interlocking basalt columns, which due to their cylindrical shapes have been mistaken for petrified tree trunks. For as long as anyone could remember, it stood there, a towering tree on the north coast of County Antrim, Northern Ireland. Its shadow stretched across the land, its thick bark weathered by time. Travelers marveled at it, children played beneath it, and stories were whispered about its age. No one questioned its presence. It was simply there, as it had always been. Until one day, a discovery shattered everything they thought they knew. A storm rolled in, fierce winds whipping across the cliffs, rain pounding the earth. The mighty tree shuddered under nature's fury. And then, a crack, a chunk of its bark peeled away, revealing something beneath. Not wood, not roots, but stone. Cold, solid stone. Whispers spread. Could it be? Was it not a tree at all? Curiosity took hold. People gathered, chipping away at the surface, revealing more and more of what lay hidden. The truth slowly emerged. The tree was no tree. It was something far older, something man-made. Beneath the moss and dirt stood towering basalt columns, perfectly shaped and tightly packed together. What they thought was bark had been layers of rock carved by time itself. This was not just another natural formation. formation. This was the Giant's Causeway. Experts arrived, their hands brushing away centuries of earth. The site stretched for 3 kilometers, reaching beyond the cliffs and into the sea. 70 hectares of land, another 160 beneath the waves. It was a wonder unlike any other, nature's own masterpiece, hidden in plain sight. UNESCO recognized its importance in 1986, naming it a World Heritage Site. Why? Because of its breathtaking beauty, cliffs of hexagonal columns rising like a frozen sea of stone. And because of its story, lava flows from millions of years ago, shaping the land in ways no human could. The Earth itself had built this place, sculpting rock into near-perfect geometric patterns. Even beyond the columns, the site held secrets, a shipwreck, the Girona, resting beneath the waves, a landscape so unique it had no equal. It was more than just a place. It was history written in stone. Now it is protected, studied, and admired. What was once mistaken for a tree is now known as one of the greatest natural wonders in the world. The Giant's Causeway was never a tree. It was a legend waiting to be uncovered. Sigiriya Rock Fortress, Sri Lanka, is a massive rock column that, when viewed from certain angles, appears like a giant tree stump, leading to myths about its origin. For years, people thought it was just a massive tree standing tall in the middle of a dense forest. From far away, its shape looked like a thick trunk stretching into the sky, its rough surface like ancient bark. Birds circled above it, and vines clung to its sides, making it seem even more like a towering tree lost in time. But this was no tree. This was Sigiriya, an ancient fortress carved into a giant rock, hiding secrets from centuries ago. Long ago, King Kashyapa stood beneath this enormous rock and saw not just a hill, but the perfect place for his new kingdom. The storms and landslides of the past had shaped this rock into a natural wonder, and Kashyapa had a vision. He built his palace right on top, high above the ground, where no enemy could reach him. But he didn't stop there. He painted the walls with beautiful, colorful frescoes, bringing life to the stone. And halfway up, he built something that would give this place its name, an enormous lion gateway, its open mouth welcoming visitors into the kingdom. That's why people call it Sigiriya, the Lion Rock. After the king was gone, the palace was abandoned. Time passed, and monks moved in, turning it into a peaceful monastery. But even that didn't last forever. By the 14th century, the place had fallen silent, and its stories had been lost to history. It wasn't until much later that people truly understood the brilliance of Sigiriya. Today, it stands as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, admired for its breathtaking design and incredible past. One of the most fascinating parts of Sigiriya is the mirror wall. It was once so polished that the king could see his reflection as he walked by. Over time, visitors began leaving their mark, scribbling poetry on the wall. Some wrote about love, others about the beauty of the frescoes, and some simply joked about how everyone else was writing, so they did too. These words, written as early as the 8th century, are now treasured as some of the oldest poetry in Sri Lanka. But Sigiriya isn't just about stone and words. The gardens surrounding it are among the oldest in the world, carefully designed with pools, fountains, and terraces. The water gardens, built with underground channels, still work today when it rains. The boulder gardens, filled with massive rocks, were once used for defense, ready to be rolled down at enemies. And the terraced gardens, climbing up the rock, lead to the famous Lion Staircase, the final path to the top. Even in modern times, Sigiriya continues to amaze. It has appeared in movies, books, and even TV shows. Writers like Arthur C. Clarke found inspiration in its mysterious beauty, and travelers from around the world came to see it with their own eyes. What was once mistaken for a tree is now recognized as one of the greatest wonders of ancient engineering. Sigiriya is not just a rock, it's a masterpiece. Tall, thin spires of rock that, with their caps, resemble tree-like figures, leading to legends about their formation. I'm talking about the spectacular fairy chimneys, Cappadocia, Turkey. In the middle of Cappadocia, Turkey, there stood something that looked like a giant ancient tree, its thick trunk stretched high into the sky, its rough surface covered in moss and cracks, like the bark of a tree that had lived for centuries. Travelers passing by would pause, staring in wonder. How could a tree grow so tall in such dry land? How had it survived survived for so long, but as the wind whispered through the valleys and the sun shifted in the sky, the truth revealed itself. This was no tree. It was something far older, something shaped not by nature alone, but by the hands of time and people. This towering structure was actually made of stone, not wood. It was part of an ancient underground city carved deep into the earth. Long ago, people discovered that the soft rock of Cappadocia could be easily hollowed out. They built homes, churches, and even entire hidden cities beneath the surface. The most famous of these was Derinkuyu, a vast underground world that once sheltered thousands of people. It had tunnels, rooms, storage areas, and even stables for animals. Heavy stone doors could seal off passageways to keep invaders out. For centuries, different civilizations used these hidden cities to escape danger. Early Christians hid there to avoid persecution. Later, during times of war, entire communities took refuge underground. But over time, the cities were abandoned and forgotten. Their entrances were buried, their stories lost. Then, in 1963, a man who renovated his home made an astonishing discovery. He knocked down a wall in his basement and found a hidden passage leading deep into the earth. Step by step, he uncovered the lost city of Derinkuyu. A place once thought to be a natural wonder was, in fact, a masterpiece of human history. Tsingy de Bemaraha, Madagascar, a stone forest made of sharp limestone formations that from afar can be mistaken for a dense, leafless forest. In the heart of Madagascar, in a place called Tsingy de Bemaraha, there stood something so massive, so towering, that everyone believed it was a giant tree. Its rough surface looked like bark, its shape stretched high into the sky like an ancient trunk. But the truth was hidden beneath its surface, waiting to be discovered. This was no tree at all. It was part of something far greater, an ancient limestone formation shaped by time itself. The ground beneath Tsingy de Bemaraha is made of sharp, jagged rocks, carved by wind and water over millions of years. These stone spikes, called Tsingy, are so sharp and dense that even walking barefoot is impossible. The name Tsingy actually means a place where one cannot walk barefoot in the Malagasy language. Beneath these towering stone forests, deep caves and underground rivers run through the land, creating a secret world hidden from sight. Despite its harsh landscape, life has found a way to thrive here. Plants and animals that cannot be found anywhere else in the world cling to the rocks, each species surviving in its own tiny space. The top of the rocks, the sides, and the deep caves all have different creatures, each adapted to their unique home. This incredible place remained untouched for centuries until explorers realized its true nature. Today, Tsingy de Bemaraha is a protected national park and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, preserving this natural wonder for generations to come. What once seemed like a giant tree turned out to be something even more magical, an ancient masterpiece carved by nature itself. Parc Güell, Barcelona, Spain, designed by Antoni Gaudí, the park features stone columns and structures that mimic natural tree forms, blending architecture with nature. Lastly, in Barcelona, there stood something so grand, so full of twisting shapes and earthy colors that people thought it must be an enormous ancient tree. People marveled at its beauty, believing it was nature's masterpiece. This was Parc Güell, a place shaped by human hands but inspired by the wild flowing forms of nature itself. Designed by the famous architect Antoni Gaudí in the early 1900s, Parc Güell is not just a park, it is a world of curves, mosaics, and colors that seem to dance in the sunlight. Gaudí loved nature, and he wanted this place to feel like it had grown straight from the earth. The columns are shaped like tree trunks, the pathways twist like forest trails, and the benches ripple like waves. Even the bright mosaic tiles shimmer like butterfly wings. It is a place where stone and color blend together, creating something both magical and real. At first, Parc Güell was supposed to be a private neighborhood filled with luxurious houses, but only 2 homes were ever built, and the idea never took off. Instead, the space became a public park, opening in 1926. Today, it is one of Barcelona's greatest treasures and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Walking through Parc Güell well feels like stepping into a dream, a place where stone breathes, colors sing, and architecture feels alive. What once seemed like a towering tree turned out to be something even more astonishing. Gordy's vision brought to life. What seemed like a massive towering tree was, in reality, an ancient structure hidden in plain sight. Time had wrapped it in mystery, fooling the eyes of those who passed by. But once the truth was uncovered, it became even more fascinating. Not just a piece of history, but a story carved in stone. Sometimes the most extraordinary things are the ones we mistake for something ordinary.